It's the amazing Rico Brogna podcast with your host, Evan Roberts.
Met fans, what you just witnessed over the last 3 days in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, was the absolute most disgraceful three-game series in the history of the franchise. In the history of the franchise. A team that has been around since 1962. A year in which it's almost a badge of honor to celebrate how much they sucked. And yet this series that just got completed against the Pittsburgh Pirates, it takes the cake over any three-game series they have ever played. They were outscored 30-4. They were non-competitive. They were never in it. It was a massacre. And what makes it a bigger massacre than any other series, even if you have the run differential record in a series like this, is that the Pirates came in averaging less than 3.5 runs per game. I mean, the Mets weren't facing the 27 Yankees. They weren't facing a good team or an even average team. They went in facing one of the crappiest teams in Major League Baseball, and somehow, and I guess we should consider ourselves lucky, somehow managed to go out and score 4 freaking runs in 3 games. But that's not the most disgraceful part, because you could almost rationalize, well, Mitch Keller's pretty good. The Pirates have some decent arms, even though they didn't face their best arm in Paul Skeens. But how the hell did they give up 30 runs? 30 runs in 3 games to this team, to a team that featured Spencer Horwitz batting cleanup. And I know Cabrian Hayes comes out of this series, and I'm sure Yankee fans are like, oh, we should trade for him. He's perfect. He sucked until this weekend. The Pittsburgh Pirates as a whole sucked until this weekend. So if you came here to this Rico Brogna, whether live on YouTube or downloaded on wherever the hell you get your podcast, if you're looking for positivity, you're just going to have to wait. Maybe I'll conjure up some positivity before episode 506 is done, but this was a suckfest. I mean, this was a non-competitive disgrace. And as I'm watching it, even before Gary Cohen made that great announcement in the 9th inning of a 12-1 shellacking, as the Mets are down to their final out, God knows who's still hanging in there. But that's when Gary Cohen told us, hey, this is about to be the biggest mismatched 3-game series in the history of the New York Mets. This is going to be the series where they got outscored by the most, 30-4. Even before he gave us that stat, I started looking back at some of the other disgraceful 3-game series in Mets history. Like, there was one that jumped out at me. I don't know how many people remember it, but in 1997, they played a 3-game series in Detroit, first year of interleague play, and they played the Tigers. And Bobby Higginson hit like 18 home runs in the series. The Mets got destroyed. And I went back on it just to see, and it wasn't even nearly close to the massacre we just saw. Because in that series against Detroit all those years ago, they would actually conjure up a couple of runs. They would actually go out there and, make it somewhat respectable. This offense, which is beyond pathetic, and I'm tired of sitting here saying, oh, they'll turn it around. We're 85 games into the season. This offense, even when getting destroyed, look at game 3 of this series. They're down 6-0 after 2. Isn't that the perfect game for them to score a couple of Fugazi late runs? Maybe lose this game 12-5 like the A's did against the Yankees, score a couple of runs, pad some statistics. They couldn't even do that. They couldn't even give you the fake offense. I mean, this series was disgraceful. And obviously, we'll eventually look ahead to Milwaukee and the Yankees and what this team could do, fire a coach, change the lineup, whatever crazy stuff you want to come up with. We'll get to all that. But this 3-game series, it's a beautiful weekend. Maybe you set up your TV outside. Maybe you did what Hoff did. You buy the pool, you put the radio on. You're expecting something positive, especially after the way they closed the Atlanta series. And for this to happen the way it did, I mean, it is a punch in the face. It's a punch in a few other areas too. But there's a lot of things I want to get to. Let me give you a few more stats that really drive home how pathetic this was. The Pittsburgh Pirates, bottom of the order. Like, it's bad enough that the Pittsburgh Pirates came into this series, let me look it up, averaging 3.26 runs per game. That's what they averaged coming into this series. 228 batting average as a team, 55 home runs as a team. Mets came in at 107. So the Mets are doubling the amount of home runs they've hit than the Pittsburgh Pirates, coming in and averaging 3.26 runs per game. It's bad enough that that offense somehow scored 30 runs, 6 through 9 in the Pirates order. 6 through 9, which in game one, let me see who it was. It was Cabrian Hayes, Jared Triolo, Alexander Canario, and Isaiah Connor-Falefa. Pretty much the same thing in game two. Joey Bart, Spencer Horwitz, Cabrian Hayes, Isaiah Connor-Falefa. And in the final game, that final 4 in the batting order, O'Neal Cruz, Tommy Pham, Jared Triolo, and Henry Davis. Why am I saying these guys' names? If you combine 6 through 9 in the batting order in this 3-game series, they went a combined, you ready for this? 21 for 44. They nearly hit 500. 6 through 9 in the batting order of the Pittsburgh Pirates went 21 for 44. How many games in a row do we have to go to find the amount of games it would add up to for the bottom of the order to get a combined 21 hits? We'd have to go back like a month, maybe a month and a half. So not only did the Mets and this pitching staff, which got rocked from top to bottom, not only did they somehow give up 30 runs in 3 games to a team that came in averaging 3.2 runs per game, they let 6 through 9, and those are the names I just mentioned, a cavalcade of crap, go 21 for 44. This was, as always, when you're sucking, and really as always throughout this stretch in which the Mets have been terrible, a collective team failure. Obviously, it is very difficult to be competitive when your starting pitching is as bad as this and doesn't go as deep as this. That is obvious. But this offense, and I know it's tough to win a game 13-12. So I'm not saying the offense needed to go out and score 13 runs on Sunday. But you can mix in a couple of big offensive performances, which just don't happen with this team. And I want to get to Juan Soto briefly. I'm not putting this on Juan Soto, obviously. He just had a great June. And all I heard about throughout the month of June was he's back, he's great, he's fantastic. Gary Cohen was so into, will he finish with the highest OPS in the history of a month in the history of the New York Mets? And unfortunately for Juan, he finished right behind Darryl Strawberry. Well, as Gary was celebrating the June of Juan Soto, I became curious. I became curious on how Juan Soto has hit in the month of June with runners in scoring position. We all know his numbers with runners in scoring position are bad. Like, those numbers are easy to find. About a 169 batting average, where it is right now. So we all know that. That's obvious. That's not new information. But considering he just put together one of the most historic months in the history of the franchise, I wanted to see, well, what is his RISP, runners in scoring position, numbers during this month? By the way, first of all, couldn't find it anywhere. I go on Baseball Reference, can't find it. You can see his totality, but you can't see what he's done in June. I go to StatMuse, can't find it. I ask AI, I can't find it. So as I'm watching the Mets get their ass kicked, I decide, you know what? I scored every game this month. Why don't I just very quickly go through my scorecard? And before anybody makes fun of me, it literally took one commercial break. Wasn't that long? It took me 4 minutes. Very quickly, I went through every game in the month of June, a month that, God thank you, is finally over, 12-15. But let's not think that 12-15 is accurate, because they started the month 9-2 and finished 3-13. So 12-15 is a little misguided. But I went through every Juan Soto at bat in the month of June, just out of curiosity. Again, he's having one of the great months of all time. Hoff, I couldn't calculate walks or hit batsmen, so I don't have his OPS. I don't have how many times he walked with runners in scoring position, but I do have his amount of hits he had with runners in scoring position. So would you like to make a guess the amount of hits Juan Soto had with runners in scoring position in the month of June, which is widely considered one of the great offensive months in the history of the New York Mets?
Can I get one question in?
Of course.
How many plate appearances did he have?
So again, I didn't calculate the walks. It was too much. So I'll give you at bats.
Fine.
22 at bats with runners in scoring position. And I'm sure if I have more time, I could tell you how many walks he had. But quite frankly, who cares? Because we're looking at drive-in runs at this point. So 22 at bats, how many hits?
I would think that with the amount of the brilliance of his June, I would think that he'd get about 6 or 7 hits in 22 at bats.
Respectable number, 6 for 22. What is that? Like a 270, 280 batting average?
Right. Yeah. Not too high, not great, but okay.
Juan Soto in the month of June was 3 for 22 with a home run and 5 RBIs with runners in scoring position. And so, look, here's the reality. Juan Soto had a great June. Like, I'm not dismissing it because of those numbers. I just want to point out what's been going on with this guy. And it's similar to a degree with what happened with Pete last year, right? Pete ended up putting up respectable numbers, but it wasn't impactful. You didn't feel the impact. And partially Soto's being screwed by the fact that the pitching is so bad. And so when you're losing a game 12-1 or 8-2, it's tough for one guy to make an impact. So I appreciate Juan Soto's numbers when there's nobody on base, because you need guys on base and you need to put a rally together. But to go 3 for 22 with runners in scoring position underlies the point that while he's hitting better, and I'm not worried about him, it still hasn't been impactful. That's the bottom line. And so when you think back to earlier this week, the Atlanta series, in which the Mets split against the Braves, and yes, Juan hit a bunch of home runs, but with, what was it, first and third, 2 outs, down by a run, he struck out. And I think in a lot of ways, that's emblematic of what's happened here. Yes, he's hit. Yes, his numbers look good. But he still hasn't been impactful. And don't take this as me blaming Juan Soto number one. I'm not blaming him number one. I'm pointing out that despite having what is considered a historic month, it's historic. Oh, my God. Darryl Strawberry is the only one with a greater OPS in any month than Juan Soto. That historic month coincided with still not making the monster impact with guys on base. I think that'll change, by the way. I'm not overly concerned about Juan Soto, but I am concerned about everything else. This Met offense is doing nothing. And while Lindor will get hot, he's been very quiet for a while, and Pete will have his streaks, and Nimmo had a very good month, you still look at this bottom of the order, Mark Vientos being the leader in this regard, and say, where is the offense coming from? Mark Vientos' return was a balloon pop kind of weekend. Boy, did he stink. And it was frustrating because in the finale of this series, and I tweeted this out and I really meant it. This wasn't me trying to be positive or trying to believe something was going to happen that wasn't. But when they fell behind 6-0, really it was 5-0 in the first inning, I started to think, boy, this would be the perfect way for the Mets to break out of it. It'd be so perfect. They get this punch in the face in the first inning. They're down 5-0. The bats haven't done anything all month. Wouldn't this be the perfect way for them to break out of it, where they respond and they win this game going away? Baseball's a funny game, and sometimes your season turns for the good and the bad when you least expect it. So when Montas gave up the 5 runs in the first inning, I genuinely thought this is tailor-made to be this great comeback. And it never happened, but one of the moments where I really knew it wasn't happening was in the top of the 4th inning. They're down 6-0. They've got 2 on and 2 outs. Their first real scoring opportunity. First time in game 3, they had runners in scoring position. And Mark Vientos came up, who has done nothing in this series, bounced into a double play his first at-bat. And he's fouling pitches off, and he's working the count full. And I really had this feeling, he's hitting a 3-run home run. This game's going to become 6-3. They're going to chase Mike Burrows out of the game. They're going to get to the Pirate bullpen, and we are going to laugh doing the Rico Brogna. We're going to talk about, we salvaged the game, but what a win. All right, this is the turnaround. And he struck out. And let's face it, that was it. They had a few more scoring opportunities, but it was too late. They're down 8-1. It's too late. So Mark Vientos, who I mentioned last week, his return is going to be so important because if they're going to get offense from the bottom of this order, He's going to have to be one of those guys. And where the hell was he this weekend? Now, let's go to the beginning, because there are 3 games I do want to break down. We do have a Rico, I'm the man now, star of the series, despite that feeling impossible. But we will pick one, and you'll like who I pick. I can promise you that. To me, it's non-competitive. It's a debate, but we'll get to that later. The net negative, that'll be a lot of fun. And I want to read a lot of your emails. I think that's good as a Rico Brogna therapy session to hear from angry Met fans. I even got a DM from Frank the Tank. That's when you know things are really... He's not just panicking. He always panics. But he even DM'd me. He's like, we're in trouble. I'm like, we are. I agree with you. This is the first time I agree with you. We're in trouble. Season isn't over, but we're in a lot of freaking trouble. Let's go back to game 1. Because the killer in game 1 wasn't just the fact that Brandon Nimmo's on second base in the top of the first inning on a Friday night and Juan Soto flies out and Pete Alonso strikes out. And so the Mets continue their merry ways of not being able to get a big hit. The shocker was David Peterson. And there's a level of concern you start to have for David Peterson. He put together a full calendar year from last June to now where he was one of the better pitchers in baseball. And there's no denying that. To where I sat here on the Rico, I said it on the Fan, this guy feels like an ace. And why wouldn't I think that, considering the way he's pitched, the way he's pitched against good teams, the length he supplied this team? I had every reason to believe it. The stinker he had last Sunday against the Philadelphia Phillies, it happens. It happens. It sucked that it happened. It sucked that it happened against the Phillies. It sucked that it happened on a Sunday night where we got the nation laughing at us. But bad starts happen. No panic. But when you're facing the Pittsburgh Pirates, who again have averaged 3.26 runs per game, and you give up 4 consecutive base hits to 6 through 9 in the batting order, and you turn what was a great start of this year into a 4 2/3 innings, 5-run, 3-walk dud against the Pittsburgh Pirates, and now you've got back-to-back lousy starts, the antennas go up. They do. It started with a 1-out walk to Joey Bart, which can't happen, and then he gave up hard contact. I mean, to give up 4 consecutive hits, the double to Canario ahead of the count 1-2, the base hit to IKF, which snuck through. He fought through the 3rd inning, pitched a clean 4th inning. So I thought from that point, all right, it's going to be one bad inning. If David Peterson, and the Mets are desperate for innings from their starters, can still give you a 6-inning, 4-run performance, I'll put this on the offense. I'll tell the offense, hey, you got to hit. David Peterson had one bad inning, no big deal. But in the 5th inning, gives up a leadoff double to Brian Reynolds, gets 2 big outs where I thought he was getting through the 5th inning. Again, one pitch, I think, changes the way we view this outing. 5 innings, 4 runs, in which you give all of your runs in the 2nd inning, and you settle in and you end up pitching 5. Again, I'm not giving him a medal for that, but I'd feel a lot better than him giving up an RBI double ahead of the count to Cabrian Hayes and getting chased before he can get the last out of the 5th inning. So the antennas are up on David Peterson. His next start is scheduled to be against Milwaukee. It looks like the Mets are going to bump him 1 extra day, insert Blade Tidwell, and I think that's a smart decision. I think David Peterson should get an extra day. I'd even consider bumping him 2 extra days. They actually could do that with the off day on Monday and put him against the Yankees, where you've got those left-hand hitters in the lineup. Peterson had success last year facing the New York Yankees. I don't think it's the worst idea in the world, but it looks like he'll be bumped 1 day and pitch the finale against Milwaukee. But if he puts together another mediocre performance, that's going to be another thing we have to worry about. Right now, we as Met fans have a million things to worry about. It's like owning a house where you put your money in to fix the flood that just happened, and then you do that, and now the electricity went out. Then you spent a lot of money on the electricity, and now your garage door just fell off. Then you fix the garage door, and your laundry machine doesn't work. Then your laundry machine works, and your wife leaves you. I just added that last part for levity, but it's kind of the same thing. The house is on fire. You're fixing little problems, not that the Mets are fixing it, but we've got a lot of problems, and then all of a sudden the thing that shouldn't be a problem is a problem, which right now is David Peterson. When he goes to Tidwell, what Carlos Mendoza is telling you in that baseball game. And at that point, it's 5-1. So it's not over, even though it feels that way with this offense. But when he goes to Blade Tidwell, what he is telling you, and we saw a lot of this weekend, is I don't have the arms, bro. I don't have anyone to go to. We've used our bullpen a lot. We get no innings from our starters. And so, sure, in a 5-1 game in Pittsburgh in the 6th inning, I don't want to give up. And I'm not telling you going to Blade Tidwell is giving up, but going to Blade Tidwell is Carlos Mendoza's cry for help, which is, I got no one else to go to. It would have been nice for Blade Tidwell to throw a few scoreless innings and at least keep it 5-1 and keep the pressure on the Met offense to, come back in this game. But that's not what happened. He gives up a 3-run home run to Brian Reynolds. He gives up another run in the 7th inning. RBI hit to Tommy Pham. And a game that was 5-1 in the top of the 6th inning turns into 8-1 and to 9-1. And outside of a solo home run by Juan Soto, where's the offense? Same story. And in this game, Friday night, they had 9 at-bats with runners in scoring position and went 0 for 9. And the tone of this game was set from the very beginning when Soto and Alonso did dick with a runner on second and nobody out. So Juan Soto hit a home run in the 4th inning. That was cool. Turned a 4-0 game into 4-1. But like has been the case the entire month of June, he'll hit his home runs. He'll make us feel good about that. But with runners in scoring position, he's like everybody else. And think about this over the bad stretch that the Mets are on, where they've lost, what is it now, 13 out of 16? Is that where we're at? Over this stretch in which they've lost 13 out of 16, they have hit 19 home runs. Okay. Not bad, by the way. 19 home runs. Here's the bad part, because that part's good on its own. 19 home runs in 16 games. What's the problem, Ev? Well, they never get a big hit. They can't pitch. And 18 of the 19 home runs, 18 of the 19 home runs, I'll say it slow because it's mind-numbing, are solo home runs. So when this team scores, and they'll score a run or two a game, they do it on solo home runs. 18 of 19 home runs during the bad stretch that began on that Friday night against the Tampa Bay Rays, where Clay Holmes was pulled early and Paul Blackburn made a giant deuce on the mound. The Mets have hit 1 home run with a guy on base. I mean, let that sink in. And then you've got game 2 of this series. Game 2 of this series, I watched very late at night on Saturday night. I had a good Saturday, a little pool party, a little spend some time with the family action. And when I sit down at, I think it was 9 o'clock at night, I try to remember, I start the Met game. They score a run early. I mean, my God, Juan Soto, hello. I hit with runners in scoring position. It was a little humpback roller, but it got through. They all count the same. And the Mets take an early 1-0 lead. I'm feeling good. But again, sometimes the Mets will tell you the story before the story is written. They're up 1-0. They've got 2 on, less than 2 outs. And what happens? Brandon Nimmo lined out, can't kill him for it, and Starling Marte strikes out with 2nd and 3rd and 2 out and a chance to jump early on Bailey Falter and give Paul Blackburn, who we all know stinks, a nice, comfortable lead. Where Mendy faced the test, very similar to the night before, is after Blackburn fights through the 1st inning and the Mets again put together a rally in the 2nd inning, the rains come. And the best part about DVRing a game is A, not wasting your entire life watching this garbage baseball team, just wasting a little bit of time because DVR can skip some things. So the 1.5-hour rain delay took me 3 minutes, which was, I always love that when I DVR games, when there's a long rain delay and I skip it and Gary's like, yeah, that was a long one. It's 1.5 hours. I wonder what they're going to do with their pitchers. And I'm like, that was a 30-second delay to me. And when there's a long rain delay, to me, it's about 45 minutes or longer. You're going to take your starter out. And I've had this debate before on the air, off the air, with friends, with Beningo, with whomever, on taking a guy out or keeping a guy in. And most of the time, our assumption is it's about the health of the pitcher. That's usually what the manager's concerned about. So if it's a young pitcher, if it's a prospect, if it's an ace, you're going to be really careful because the last thing you want to do is hurt a guy because of a rain delay. So with 2 on and 2 out in the second inning of a 1-0 game, I wasn't surprised that Don Kelly said, Bailey Falter, young left-handed pitcher, we're going to take you out. We're going to go to our bullpen. We're going to go to another prospect, Braxton Ashcroft, and we'll see what happens. And of course, Mark Vientos struck out. Looked like he didn't have a chance. Looked like it was me facing Major League pitching in that at-bat. And so a little bit of a buzzkill. It's a 1-0 game. And you could tell in that inning, based on no one warming up in the bullpen, wow, Mendy's going to stick with Blackburn. Now I'm going to raise my hand on this. And if Met fans want to disagree, first guess, second, whatever you want to do is fair game. I agreed with keeping Blackburn in. And I'll tell you why. First of all, I don't know the future. Okay? I didn't know that Paul Blackburn was just going to defecate all over himself coming out of this rain delay. But my attitude was, he's a veteran pitcher. I'm not going to baby him. I'm not overly concerned about his health. And let's go back to point 1 from the previous game. They don't have a lot of options. Sure, Colin Poche is in the bullpen. Sure, Brandon Waddell is in the bullpen. But to a degree, wouldn't you rather just try to steal a couple of innings out of Paul Blackburn? It's not like those other options are better. So I agreed with Mendy. And I think a part of why he did it was, what choice does he have? I mean, they're not loaded with arms. And again, most of the time when there's a long rain delay, my thought process is about the health of the pitcher, not the effectiveness. Because if the guy's ineffective, take him out. Here's where I think Mendy may have screwed up. Not may, I'll take that out. Here's where Mendy screwed up. You don't know what he's going to be after a rain delay. I'd be the first to admit it. So maybe you want to have your bullpen not ready immediately, but on high alert. And so he gives up a leadoff hit to O'Neal Cruz. He lets O'Neal Cruz steal second base. He gives up a base hit to Joey Bart. At that point, I'm a little worried. I'm a little like, whoa, okay, this may not work out of the rain delay. Gives up a base hit to Spencer Horwitz. Gives up a base hit to Brian Hayes. Gives up a base hit to IKF. He let him face 5 batters. And remember, there's no 3-batter minimum here. Like, you could have taken him out after 1 batter. So what's Mendy waiting for? So I agreed with him in at least giving Blackburn the opportunity to start the second inning, but there is that possibility that it's not going to work. And it took Carlos Mendoza, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, 5 batters before he finally said, let me go to Jose Butto. And here's where the Saturday game, game 2 of this series, pisses me off more than any game in this series, and it's not even close. After this happens, and you're down 3-1, the Met bullpen does an incredible job. Jose Butto, I know he allowed an inherited runner by giving up the sacrifice fly to Adam Frazier, but he works around the catcher's interference, bases loaded. He strikes out Brian Reynolds. He gets Nick Gonzalez to ground out. That could have been far worse. It could have been 5-1. It could have been 6-1. It's 3-1. He puts 2 on and nobody out in the third inning. He gets through it. Gets a little lucky when Brian Hayes hits a line drive right at Brandon Nimmo, and there's a base running miscue by O'Neal Cruz, but whatever. He gets through it. And then he pitches a 1-2-3-4. And then we see Brandon Waddell come into the 4th inning. 1-2-3-3, I should have said. Actually, it wasn't even a 1-2-3-3. It was the 3rd inning. So 2 innings out of Butto, keeping the game 3-1. He goes to Brandon Waddell, who delivers an outstanding performance. I mean, let's just get this out of the way now. Why beat around the bush? It's not even close. The Rico, I'm the man now star of the series is Brandon Waddell. Not close. There's no other option. Don't give me Brandon Nimmo. Don't give me Juan Soto. Don't give me anybody. It's him. Because Brandon Waddell pitched 3 scoreless innings, keeping the game at 3-1. Allowing the Mets to make it 3-2 when Brandon Nimmo came through with an RBI single. Brandon Waddell had a chance, if this Met offense woke up from its slumber, to be the hero. But because the Met bats did nothing, I mean, absolutely nothing, to the point where from the 6th inning on, they weren't even threatening. The last time they had a runner in scoring position in this game was when Brandon Nimmo drove in Pete Alonso in the 4th inning. It was 3-2. And the bats did nothing. Yet Brandon Waddell, 3 scoreless. Reed Garrett is scoreless. It wasn't until the 8th inning when Huascar Brazoban came in and really reminded us how he not only shouldn't be in the circle of trust, his roster spot's in jeopardy. I mean, it is now possible Huascar Brazoban doesn't make it on this major league roster throughout the year. He comes in, he walks 3 more guys, he gives up a bunch of base hits, finally to the point where they got to go to Colin Poche to come in so he can get DFA'd 24 hours later. And a game that was 3-2 in the 8th inning, the one close game in this series, in my opinion, they let slip away. It becomes 9-2. And so it sounds like a blowout, but this was a winnable game. This game's on the offense. It really is. I don't know if Mendy manages differently if they take the lead in the 8th inning. Probably does. Maybe at that point he's desperate enough to ask Edwin Diaz for a 6-out save or a 4-out save or God knows what. But the Met offense against Bailey Falter, Braxton Ashcroft, Dennis Santana, who shouldn't have even been available, should have been suspended already, Caleb Ferguson, and David Bednar does nothing. Does nothing. Brandon Waddell and the Met bullpen did everything to keep the Mets in this game, a game that Paul Blackburn let slip away coming out of the rain delay, and the Met bats do nada. And again, the signs were there early. 2nd and 3rd, 2 out. 1st and 2nd, 1 out, and you can't score a run. A 2nd run or a 3rd run. 2 on, 2 out for Tyrone Taylor in the 3rd inning. They can't score. 2 on, 2 out of the rain delay. Mark Vientos. They can't score. After Brandon Nimmo pulls them within 1, Marte and Taylor strike out back-to-back. They can't score. Leadoff walk by Brett Beatty in the 6th. Top of the order coming up. They can't score. And by that point, it was too late because then Brazoban let go of the rope and the game became a blowout. As far as the 3rd game of this series, I mean, what is there to say about that disgrace? Frankie Montas is throwing batting practice. I mean, think about the outs he got. The 1st out was a line out. The 2nd out was a line out. Until he struck out Triolo after giving up the back-to-back home runs, all his outs were lucky. He was fortunate he got through the 1st inning only giving up 5 runs. It should have been worse. And the real killer in that 1st inning is after he gets the line out, after he walks a guy, after he gives up a double, Spencer Horwitz hits a line drive, and Brett Beatty makes a great play. And so here's Frankie Montas on the verge of somehow escaping the 1st inning, despite hard contact everywhere. And he's ahead of Cabrian Hayes, and he gives up that little blooper to make it 2-0. And then he gives up the 2-run home run to O'Neal Cruz. And then he gives up the home run to Tommy Pham ahead of the count 0-2. He was this close. I'm holding my 2 fingers together. This close to getting through the 1st inning scoreless. Now, does that change the game? I don't know. I mean, the Met bats did nothing again besides a solo home run by Luis Torrens. But that 1st inning wasn't just he got pounded and couldn't get an out. He was lucky, but he was a pitch away from getting through that without giving up a run. He does get through 4 somehow, which, I mean, I don't know if we should celebrate it because the truth is I think Carlos Mendoza was going to make him get through 4 innings no matter what. And then we're treated to the return of Dickie Lovelady, Dednell Nunez reminding us that maybe he's not all the way back, and a freaking position player pitching for the 2nd time over this 16-game stretch. And in the middle of that, and this should not be forgotten, despite how bad the pitching has been, what should not be forgotten is where was the offense. You are facing Mike Burrows on 3 days rest. You're facing Hennessy's Cabrera, who you DFA'd. You're facing Corman Medensky. And they did nothing. Like, it's almost amazing to me that they did nothing. Because I could have sworn down 6-0, even if I wasn't going to be right, they were going to have this great comeback to turn their season around. They were going to score a bunch of Fugazi runs. They couldn't even score the Fugazi runs. They get blown out in this game 8-1 in the fifth inning. That's tailor-made for a bunch of meaningless home runs, a bunch of meaningless runners in scoring position base hits, and none of it happened. So where do we stand right now? Where do I stand right now? I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't worried. This team has one thing going for them, and that is time and math. And I count that as one because it's basically the same thing. They're a game and a half out of first place. They're in a playoff spot. They're 11 games above 500, and there's a lot of baseball left to be played. And the lot of baseball left to be played applies to everybody. That's not special for the New York Mets. What's special for the New York Mets is that they banked so many wins earlier this season that they're still right there. And that's true. And there's no denying that. But that will only last for so long. I can say that to you, but what if they go lose the next 6 games at home, which is on the table? I mean, how could I confidently tell you they're going to come home and win 4 to 6? How could I say that? I'd be lying to you. There is no evidence over this 16-game stretch that they're going to wake up out of it because they're not doing anything well. They're not losing close games. They're getting destroyed. And throughout this season, I remember making this comment some point in May. I said, boy, it's amazing. Even when they lose, they're close games, which led us to even say, wow, a couple of things go your way. They could have an even better record over this stretch of games. I mean, go through these final scores. And I know some of them, like game 2 of this series, looks worse than what it was. They're down 3-2 in the 8th inning. They give up 6 runs to make it 9-2. I get that. But in this 3-game series, 12-1, 9-2, 9-1. The last 2 games against Atlanta, 7-4 and 4-3. Okay. 7-1 in the finale against the Phillies, 10-2 in the opener against the Phillies, 7-1 and 5-0 in the 2 middle games or final games in Atlanta, 9-0 in the last game against Tampa, 8-4 in the Saturday game against Tampa. I mean, they have been blown out in more of these games than had heart-wrenching losses. And that scares you because it shows you they're not doing anything well. They're not pitching well. They're not hitting well. They're not fielding well. They're not doing anything well. And I want to tell you, well, the offense will break out of it. And I did say that on many Ricos throughout this season. The offense will hit. The offense will hit. The offense will hit. We're 85 games into this season. When's that happening? Will it help to get Jesse Winker back? Sure. I mean, it doesn't hurt. But whether it's 6 through 9 or it's not hitting in the clutch from everybody, like outside of Pete Alonso, does anybody have good numbers with runners in scoring position this season for this team? It's bad. So I don't know how to spread confidence to my fellow Met fans. I will answer this question before we get to your emails and pick a net negative and preview the homestand coming up. The question is, well, what do you do? Should they fire a coach? Should they fire Eric Chavez? Should they fire Jeremy Barnes? Should they fire Jeremy Hefner? This is where I'm going to disagree with a lot of Met fans. If they want to fire Eric Chavez, fine. Fine. I'm not going to celebrate it. I'm not going to believe it's going to do anything. I'm not going to think that's the turnaround. But I understand that the Met fan wants blood right now. Firing a coach does nothing for me. And that's not me defending them. Because again, you want to fire him, fine. No sweat off my back. I'm not going to care. But the idea that that's going to make the difference, I don't buy it. I go back to 1999 when Steve Phillips fired all the coaches. Remember that? For those that are too young, Mets were struggling. They had lost the first 2 games of the Subway Series to the Yankees. At that point, they had dropped under 500. That's what's unusual about where the Mets are. Usually when you have a stretch like this, you drop below 500. You drop in a horrible spot. But because they got off to such a great start, despite this stretch, they're 11 games above 500, which, again, is the only positive this team has. But I remember when they fired the coaches. And I think a lot of that was to send a message to Bobby Valentine. Does David Stearns need to send a message to Carlos Mendoza? Carlos has not been perfect in this stretch. Obviously, I've criticized a lot of the moves he's made. Does anybody in their right mind think he's the problem? If you do, I don't think you're paying attention. If you do, you are deflecting from the fact that right now the roster isn't very good. You want to blame David Stearns for that? He should be. He's the team president. I love David Stearns, but you're judged based on your resume. You're judged based on your result. Does this pitching staff feel good right now? Do we feel confident in Paul Blackburn, who he brought in? Or Frankie Montas, who he brought in? Not right. Not really. They're going to face Jose Quintana this week. We screamed to bring him back when the Mets had injuries in spring training. And, wow, it's going to cost too much. And I get that. Steve has spent a lot of money. But could they use Jose Quintana right now? Have you seen the way he's pitched in Milwaukee? If you haven't, wait till Thursday. You'll see his stats. I can't guarantee he's going to shut the Mets down, though he probably will. So the guy to look at is David. It doesn't mean he should be fired. It just means we can criticize the moves that he's made. There's nothing wrong with that. At least evaluating where we are right now, entering the month of July. This team doesn't feel good enough, which is insanity to think, considering 2.5 weeks ago, we were in the catbird seat. But this doesn't feel like your normal funk. I've watched a lot of baseball, and I know what my dad has taught me and what everyone else has taught me, which is you're not as bad as you are when you're bad, and you're not as good as you are when you're hot. And I stand by that, and I get it, and it's true, and it's baseball, and it's weird, and it's wacky, and it's all over the place. But this funk no longer feels like a funk. This feels like reality. Not that they're a bad team, but maybe they're not nearly as good as we thought they were. The starting pitching is egregiously awful. They haven't gotten big hits all season long. They're not particularly good at anything right now. And what I hold on to, because this is my, I guess, positive, and I wouldn't even call it a spin, it's just the reality, is there's a lot of time. They're in a good spot record-wise, and they do, even though it may not be happening in the next 48 hours, they do have potential reinforcements coming specifically for the rotation. Sean Manaea can make a difference. Kodai Senga can make a difference. Those two guys enter the rotation, and all of a sudden, Paul Blackburn isn't in it. Blade Tidwell isn't in it. You feel a little bit better, a little bit different about the Met rotation. A little bit. But what I think David Stearns needs to do, because I do want to present like an action plan besides, I don't care about firing the coaches. I don't, but I'll tell you what I would try. Blade Tidwell is up here. He's going to make a start. What about Jonah Tong? What about Nolan McLean? Because both of those guys, I know Tong's still at AA, both of those guys have pitched really well. And maybe, just maybe, you call up a young arm and we have our own Jacob Misarowski. Why not? This is a part of bad team bingo. When things are going bad, it's fire a coach, blame a manager, get ejected, start a fight, change the lineup, call up prospects. And the Mets have tried a lot of this. Mendy tried the ejection plan. Remember that? He tried that a couple days ago. He said, screw it, I'll get thrown out of the game. Did nothing. Mets did not respond. I think they scored a run an inning later, and that was it. They did nothing, and of course, ended up getting blown out on Saturday night. So they've tried the manager ejection. I guess they could try the brawl, but when it comes to young players, Tong and McLean deserve a shot. It's worth it. That's what I would do. Firing the coaches do nothing for me. You can do it, but it's not whetting my fancy, making me think it's going to turn the team around.
Hey, they even had a players-only meeting Saturday night. I mean,
that's right. I forgot about that part of the bingo.
They had a players-only meeting. There were 6 to 7 Mets that talked, and clearly that hit a spot. That hit everyone deeply enough, and it lit a fire. It hit nothing. It did nothing.
Last year's legendary players-only meeting is an outlier. It's an outlier. Teams have player-only meetings all the time over the course of years, and they usually lead to nothing. So I saw that on Saturday, and I was like, all right, okay. All right, here we go. We're trying something. But last year kind of fools our brain into thinking that the players-only meeting can lead to something. It usually doesn't. And obviously their response was quite pathetic since the players-only meeting.
There's only one thing that could save him right now. And I'm being honest. I'm being sincere. I see how David Stearns is going to the bottom of the barrel looking for something. There's one man that could save the day. It's Jorge Lopez. Bring him back. Maybe have the fans throw gloves at him on the field. I don't know, something. But reverse what happened last year. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, here's an idea. Joe Venna writes, last year the Mets took off in London. Along with Grimace, Hoctua, and OMG, their season really took off after that trip. Perhaps the Yankees next weekend will be the spark that ignites this team. I think a Yank beatdown is just what the doctor ordered. Speaking of doctors, the pitching lab must have went on vacation in June. Time to try out Sproat or Tongue because they are better than Black Burned. Yeah, Brandon Sproat we don't mention as much because he hasn't pitched well at AAA. His last start was good. He threw 6 innings, I think gave up a run or 2. But if we're rewarding performance, Tong and McLean are the guys you would think about. Guys who I think have jumped ahead of Sproat just based on the way they've pitched. Looking ahead to this Milwaukee, Yankee, Baltimore, Kansas City run before the All-Star break, they have Clay Holmes with an extra day of rest on Tuesday. They've inserted, at least I think they've inserted Blade Tidwell to Wednesday. David Peterson gets pushed back to Thursday. Frankie Montas goes on Friday. And then Blackburn would go Friday. Montas would go Saturday. And then assuming they're comfortable with Clay Holmes on regular rest, which he's only done once this season, Clay Holmes on regular rest against his former team. But maybe I would not be surprised. If one of those kids makes a start against the Yankees. And I'll tell you why I wouldn't be surprised. Number one, Blade Tidwell goes Wednesday, and once Minaya is back, he's out of the rotation. Minaya will probably replace him, unless Tidwell gives you like 6 scoreless innings, and all of a sudden we're inspired. They have been afraid to pitch Clay Holmes on regular rest. We talk so much about Kodai Senga. Holmes has only done it once. And so if he pitches that Sunday game against the Yankees, it's on regular rest. I kind of have a feeling they won't do it. And if they don't do it, it gives you the weekend as an opportunity to call up someone else to make a start. And then Clay could start Tuesday in Baltimore against the Orioles. And I also think if you call up a McLean or even a Tong, you could easily sell it to them. This is one start. Because Minaya, in theory, assuming he comes out of his rehab game fine, would re-enter the rotation. So that's just a prediction I have looking at the Yankee series coming up. But yes, Joe, in theory, beating up the Yankees would spark this team. Tom writes, Evan, I want you to be the GM for a few minutes. With Luis Severino having a down year, I wanted to see what assets you think will be good enough to trade for him. I think Severino is a no-brainer, and I think he just misses the pitching lab. If the lab is still active and hasn't blown up. Also wanted to see what other assets you would give up and for who, if it's the bullpen hitters or others starting pitching. Tom, I don't think Luis Severino is worth that much to me. I would bring him in. I take him back. But keep this in mind. The Mets were not willing to pay what the A's paid. So are they willing to pay what the A's paid now after reallocating those funds to other starting pitchers? Not really. So I think it comes down to not giving up much to the A's and maybe even having them pick up a part of that salary. The appealing thing about Severino, I brought this up on Evan and Tiki on the Fan the other day, is that his splits are that he's awful at home. If you look at just his numbers on the road, they are pretty good, actually, despite the Yankee game. Like, they're actually respectable. So there are signs that his struggles are really coming from pitching in Sacramento for whatever reason. Craig writes, don't be nice. Evan, if you put a positive spin on this weekend, you're going to hear me screaming from Long Island. So we've done the Rico for 50 minutes. I have given you no positive spin. The only positive thing I've said is just facts, which is it's July, they've got time, and they got so many wins early, they're in a good spot record-wise. Everything else sucks. So if you took that simple, hey, that's the only positive as a positive, I don't know what to tell you. Anyhow, he writes, we suck, and this is what they are. It's been over 2 weeks of watching the same thing. The pen has got awful. The starters are batting practice. We're playing from behind every single game, so it's not a shocker that everyone in the lineup is pressing. I can't stand David Stearns and this pen and rotation that he put together. Every arm we have is a reclamation project. He cares more about looking like the smartest guy in the room than actually putting a winner on the field. Can I respond to that? It's not about looking like you're smart. I think what David Stearns has done in the 2 years that he's here is he's telling you, I don't want to pay pitchers because pitchers aren't worth it. Because eventually they blow up in your face. And why don't we just look at the guys he added or brought back this season when it comes to pitching? He brought back Sean Manaea. We all wanted him back. I remember doing that emergency Rico Brogna. Was it around Christmas when I pulled into North Carolina at 4 o'clock in the morning, whatever the hell I was doing? We were excited. We were pumped up. The guy has made 0 starts this season. 0. Frankie Montas, we didn't like him, but he's made 2 starts this season. I mean, what have we seen from him? So I think it's a reminder, and those have not worked, obviously, but it's a reminder that you just don't know. And that's why he doesn't want to give 7-year contracts to Corbin Burnes. How'd that work out? So far, Max Fried's been unbelievable, but I don't know what the majority of that 8-year contract looks like. So, Craig, I disagree with the idea that it's about him trying to look smart. I think it's about him and a strategy, which you may disagree with, and I disagree with it to an extent, which is he doesn't think it's worth it. When Frankie Montas or Sean Manaea is a failure or it doesn't work, it's a short-term contract. And it's easier to move on from a short-term contract that's a fail than giving out a 5 or 6 year deal. Let Corbin Burnes be your guy. And by the way, going through the pitching moves he made, Clay Holmes so far has worked out. Lucas writes, I got 2 points on the bright side. Bright side points from Lucas. As bad as it was, the record in June was 12-15. That's nothing compared to June swoons in the past. And number 2, at least the Pittsburgh Pirates tiebreaker doesn't matter. That's got to make you smile a little bit. We're big on the tiebreakers around here. And the Pirate tiebreaker doesn't matter. The problem with the June swoon, hey, it's not that bad, they were 12-15, is that they started 9-2 and they finished 3-13. Let me give you a June breakdown. So in March, they were 2-2. We'll throw that out. In April, they were 19-8. They scored 4.93 runs per game, which I thought coming into the season was right where they should be. And they pitched to a ridiculously good 2.68 ERA. So insane numbers. In May, they went 15-12. Not necessarily as good as maybe we remember it, but 15-12. They averaged 3.96 runs per game, so way down, and their ERA went up just a little bit to 3.08. Still very good. The June totality says this, 12-15. They actually averaged more runs in June than May, 4.19. Still not good, though. But the ERA ballooned from 3.08 to 4.80. I mean, one of the worst in baseball. In fact, it was one of the worst ERAs in baseball in the month. They also walked the most guys in this month. But here's what's not that weird because we talked about the solo home runs, but interesting. They hit many more home runs in June than they hit in May or April. In April, they hit 29. In May, they hit 30. In June, they hit 45. The problem was they came with nobody on base. That was the problem. Brian Reed writes, 30-4 pathetic. I'm done. I officially feel like the guy in Major League. Cousin Eddie, you know who I mean. This team stinks and exactly what I thought they'd be going into spring training. I never liked how this offseason was built and figured the pitching would be mediocre at best. We all know the pitching, the first 1/3 of the year was out otherworldly, very clearly hiding all the imperfections of this offense. Now that the pitching has come back to earth and they're all performing like the back of their baseball card has always shown, Montas stinks. WTF was Stearns thinking with that one, while Jose Quintana is quietly throwing under 3 ERA baseball for Stearns' old club. It's officially time to say it's over. They've given up 30 runs, 3-0 in 3 games to an offense that's been abysmal all year. I bet Skeens is quietly crying over there and wishes it was a 4-game series so he'd finally get run support. Stearns did this team a disservice this offseason. No upgrades at DH, center field, catcher, second base. 6 through 9 automatic outs. To add to this, He lets reliable pitching go and brought in this absolute POS and Montas who are watching every arm throw gas on the fire. For the first time in my 35 years of being a fan, I'm actually disinterested in watching this team and have no plans to commit much time this week to watching them. They look like they don't care. Why the hell should I? It was fun while it lasted this year, but they've turned into a pumpkin. I'm going to say it now. Here's to 2026. I'll keep listening, though, because I'm loyal like the band, also a bit sadistic and putting myself through the pain year after year. All right. Well, thank you, Brian. That was depressing. I can never, well, first of all, for anyone who's a loyal Rico listener, we stayed interested throughout the 2023 season. So we can watch a 110-loss team. We'll still be here doing Ricos, talking about this team. I can't go to that extreme only because they're 11 games above 500, at least for now. Once they fall below 500, maybe I'll start thinking that. But it is bad on all accounts. On all accounts. And it feels like the only thing, the three things, I'll give you the three things that can save this team as we enter a new month. Number one, they just start hitting with runners in scoring position. Like, they just start doing it. They haven't done it all year. They're the second worst team in baseball besides the Chicago White Sox. And as much as I'm sick and tired of saying it's going to change, how about it just changes? And much like the ERA for this team has come crashing back to earth, like there was an overcorrection, maybe we get an overcorrection when it comes to hitting with runners in scoring position, especially from a guy like Juan Soto. Even if you don't believe in the bottom of the order, which is tough to do, how about a Juan Soto runners in scoring position overcorrection? Or Francisco Lindor gets hot, considering he's done nothing now for 3.5 weeks. That's number one. Number two, Minaya and Senga coming back. Minaya may be back in a week and a half. Number three, and that is if this team, and I think they will be, I don't think they're going to lose every game in July, are in position to strike come late July, they make big, significant trades that impact this team positively. Speaking of which, I do need to read this email from Steve because we talk about the trade deadline still 3-4 weeks away. And again, unless the Mets go 3-17 in their next 20, they should still be in a good position at the deadline. Steve doesn't think so. He writes, Evan, if the Mets crash out over the next month, can you envision any scenario where Pete Alonso gets traded at the trade deadline? Thank you very much, Steve. So let's have some fun here. Not that this is fun. This is the opposite of fun. Right now, despite how crappy things have been, the New York Mets are 48-37. They are the top wild card team. Now, their lead over a wild card spot is actually not very high. It's actually only 2 games, and it's only 1 in the loss column. So their lead over a wild card spot is not incredibly high. But for the Mets to fall out of it, like to just not be in it, they would have to have a terrible July. I think they'd have to drop below 500 because right now the third wild card spot is 9 games above 500. I don't know if that's going to last. I look at the rest of the National League, like the Brewers are red hot. They're 10 over. Are the Brewers a 90-win team as well as they're playing? The Cardinals are 9 over. Are they a 90-win team as well as they're playing? The Padres I can buy. The Giants, the Reds. So for the Mets to fall out of it, they're going to have to basically continue this. I mean, they're going to have to, let's say going into the All-Star break, they've got 12 games. If they go 3-9, and that would drop them, they'd still be 5 games over. Like, they'd be out of a playoff spot, but they'd still be 5 games above 500. So to answer your question, Steve, the ultimate pessimist in terms of they just fall out of it and they start selling guys off, it would have to be like this would have to continue times 2. Like it would have to continue into the All-Star break, and then it would have to continue coming out of the All-Star break when they play Cincinnati and Anaheim. I mean, basically, if you look at those next 18 games, I think they have to go 3-15. And if they go 3-15, by the way, they're still only a game under 500, which is kind of crazy. Like if they go 3-15 in their next 18 games, which I know we are very scared of happening, they'd still be a game under and probably sort of in it. So, no, they're not going to trade Pete Alonso. They're not going to sell guys off. I think what's unfortunate is just the way baseball is right now. There's just not a lot of sellers right now. So the idea of them making a trade now in the next couple of days, in the next couple of weeks, it's just not likely. Let's pick a net negative. I said earlier in the Rico that the Rico I'm the man now star of the series to me is Brandon Waddell for what he did out of the bullpen in the one game that was competitive. He pitched 3 scoreless innings, only allowed 1 base hit, and kept the game that was 3-1, 3-2, 3-2 until the 7th inning. Unfortunately, the Met bats did nothing, and then the bullpen let it slip away in the 8th inning. Hoff, would you agree that if we have, because I believe we have to pick a Rico star of the series no matter what, and a net negative no matter what. Got a lot of crap for picking net negatives when they were winning all the time. I think that's the hard, fast rule. Would you agree it's Brandon Waddell, or is there somebody else that I'm ignoring conveniently?
I mean, maybe Richard Lovelady for coming back and not being terrible.
No, he came back. Oh. He gave up 2 runs in 2 innings. What are you talking about? He
wasn't as terrible as some other guys.
Okay, that's just proof you agree it's Brandon Waddell.
Yes.
Okay.
I would like to find something else positive, but it's tough. Do you say you can't put Carlos Mendoza there for getting tossed, right?
No managers, no GMs, no presidents, no hitting coaches. That's easy. It's you with these player.
You with these rules. I mean, come on.
So the origination of the Rico I'm the man now star of the series is when I score games, I have an Evans star of the series, star of the game, every game. Now I don't stick it to just Mets. So like, for example, there'll be a pit like O'Neal Cruz won it, I think, for the finale of this series against the Pirates. It's always a player. It's not 2 players. It's not 3 players. It's not a manager. It's not a coach. I feel it's a hard and fast rule. And quite frankly, Brandon Waddell deserves credit. Because if the Met offense does anything, we would be giving him the Rico I'm the man now star of the series with a smile on our face. So Brandon Waddell it is. You don't have a counter. The net negative, though, we got a lot of options. Who jumps out at you, Hoff?
I mean, I am so anti-Paul Blackburn right now, even though it's not really – is it really his fault that he went back in the game? It's his fault he stinks. Brazaban has been terrible. I mean, I'm ready. You're not going to DFA Brazaban, but you can opt him out and send him down to the minors. So I'm there. I mean, I like to always go the one guy like that, hey, he's here for a day. Let's slap him with the net negative like Colin Poche. But that's a little bit too much because it's not all his fault that they lost 3 freaking games. We get slaughtered. But if there's one guy I'm going to have to choose, I think it might be Mark Vientos because he was terrible. 1 for 13.
That's a good call right there. That was so I wrote down 5 candidates. Candidate number 1 is David Peterson. The tone of this series was set in that 2nd inning by David Peterson. He was awful. And against this kind of lineup, against the bottom of the order, I think David Peterson, as much as we love him, we've handed him the Rico I'm the man now star of the series twice. He had that complete game a few weeks ago. Fantastic. I think the tone of this series and really the guy that they needed to get a good start from because he's done it before was David Peterson. So he's a candidate. You mentioned Paul Blackburn. I get the rain sucks, but he still came out and much like David Peterson gave up base hit to the bottom of the order. I think Frankie Montas is a great option considering he took them out of the game in the 1st inning. I think Huascar Brazaban is an option, as you talked about from Saturday night's game in which the Mets had a chance to come back. And who knows what would have happened in the 9th inning down 3-2. I mean, I guess we do know what would have happened in the 9th inning down 3-2. They would have done nothing. But Mark Vientos is a good one offensively. I mean, let's not forget, despite the Mets giving up 30 runs in these 3 games, they scored 4. Like, their offense deserves a lot of crap for what happened here. And I'll go through the regulars and tell you how they did. Soto 3 for 10 with a walk. Alonso 3 for 12. Nimmo 4 for 11. McNeil 2 for 8. Beatty 3 for 11. The 2 bad ones were Mark Vientos and Francisco Lindor. Lindor went 1 for 12. He did have that double in game 2 in which he scored a run. And we thought briefly, here we go. We're in good shape. Mets take a 1-0 lead. But that was his only hit in the series. And then you got Mark Vientos at 1 for 13. and especially Vientos batting second, which I did not love. He struck out coming out of the rain delay, which I thought was a big spot. And then I mentioned the 10-pitch at-bat, which was a good at-bat when the Mets are trying to come back down 6-0 on Sunday, and he strikes out. So there are so many options. I kind of want to go with what you said, though, with Mark Vientos. I want to give it to him. I think there's a lot of pressure on him. I think they need him. And, yeah, we can go with any one of those starting pitchers. I would say it's between Vientos and David Peterson because of the expectations we have for David. Boy, I'm on the fence right now. You want to give it to Vientos or should go David Peterson?
I'm going to give it to Vientos because you want to know why. He came back. He had a chance every day to do something because, I mean, listen, you're up. You're at the dish. You're a DH now, right? I mean, that's all he's got to do is hit the ball, and he's not doing that. And that's a problem. It's been going on all season long. And this one, it affected the entire series. So yeah, I would say Mark Vientos is definitely your guy.
Congratulations. Mark Vientos is now a 4-time net negative winner, but don't worry, Mark, you're not alone. Lindor's won it 4 times. And believe it or not, Juan Soto's won it 4 times. Brandon Waddell, congratulations. You've won your first. Rico, I'm the man now, star of the series. So here's what's coming up. And what's coming up feels awful on paper. And maybe that's good. Maybe considering this felt good on paper, playing the Pittsburgh Pirates minus Paul Skeens, that facing a red-hot Brewer team in which the Brewers are going to have the starting pitching edge, I'd argue in all 3 games, definitely in 2 of them. The third one is a coin toss. Clay Holmes against Freddie Peralta. Freddie Peralta is one of the better pitchers in baseball. That's an advantage Milwaukee, especially with Clay Holmes recently, where you don't know how far into games he can go. Luckily, the Mets are going to be coming off an off day. They can make roster moves if they want to try to refresh this bullpen. Plus, their bullpen is sort of fresh from Sunday because think about who they use. They use Dickie Lovelady, Dednell Nunez, and Travis Jankowski. So, I mean, it's actually pretty refreshed considering who Mendy went to. But you've got Freddie Peralta against Clay Holmes. You got Jake Misarowski, one of the better young pitchers in all of baseball. He has been incredible against Blade Tidwell. That feels like a mismatch. And then the one that's close is David Peterson against Jose Quintana, who's had a very good year for Milwaukee. Peterson was having a very good year until 2 days ago. And then the Yankee series, the way I have it lining up right now is that it would be Paul Blackburn against Marcus Stroman on Friday afternoon on the 4th of July. What a pitching matchup that's shaping up to be. And then I have it as Frankie Montas against Carlos Rodon. And then whoever starts the Sunday game, whether it's Clay Holmes on regular rest against Max Fried. So that ain't going to be easy either when you think about the tough pitchers they're facing. I mean, 5 of the 6 guys they're going to face on this homestand are very good. Varying levels of very good. Obviously, Max Fried has had a Cy Young season. Freddie Peralta's had a very good season. Marcus Stroman, assuming he makes the start, and I assume that he will, considering he pitched well in his return from the IL, is really the one guy you're facing that's not great. And one thing we've learned about this Met offense, it doesn't matter who they're facing. They don't hit. So it's tough to be confident. It's tough for me to give the fellow Ricoers a vote of confidence going into this 6-game homestand other than that's baseball, Susan. That's it. That's all I can give you. Because last year, as we sat through so much negative in April and May, as things were going bad and we were calling it like it is, I'd always remind you, it's baseball. You never know when things are going to turn. Unfortunately, we've seen the other end of it this year with things turning terribly out of nowhere after that Thursday afternoon game where Senga got hurt. They beat the Nationals. And they had a lead against the Rays on a Friday night. Like that may be the game we all remember. We may think back Friday night, fireworks night. Big lead. Took Clay Holmes out early because he didn't feel good coming out of Colorado, and everything went to hell in a handbasket. That's where we are. So stick with us. We'll be here the entire time. I did lay this out on WFAN the other day. I'll do it here at the very end of this edition of the Rico Brogna. I am going to Europe in a few weeks. And what I told Pete was I plan on doing the series-ending Rico Brognas. I think doing instant reactions will be very challenging, just considering the time change. So Pete has the absolute authority to do instant reaction Ricos without me whenever he wants, if he feels the game is worthy of it. But I have told him that for the series ender against the Yankees, for the series ender against the Orioles and Royals, and even some things going into the All-Star break, I think I'll be able to do it on location. They will be a weird time for me. They will not be weird for you. It'll feel like a normal time, but I'll be doing Rico Brogna's at 2 o'clock in the morning. So that's my plan. If there's technical issues or glitches or what have you, or I end up falling asleep, which is entirely possible, Pete will do a great job with those Ricos while I'm away, but I certainly plan on doing the series recaps from Europe. And what I will try to do, especially for the video audience on YouTube, is to try to set up my camera possibly in front of famous European sites. So you never know. There could be an Eiffel Tower Rico Brogna coming your way. It's possible. We're working on it. My wife even got me a selfie stick. So we may have some very exotic Rico Brognas while I'm in Europe for the Baltimore-Kansas City series and then for a little bit part of the All-Star break.
Can you do me one solid? At the very least, maybe you eat like a late night crepe live on a Rico?
Done.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Done. I'll even have some wine. Maybe we'll have a drunk Rico while I'm in Europe.
Hey, I like that. That's great.
Let's go. But I can't wait to watch every game. I've had people say, you're going to watch the Mets while you're away? I'm like, yeah. Spending the whole day sightseeing, doing great stuff with my family. It's actually kind of cool that the games start at 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'm not even exaggerating. There's a 6-hour time difference where I'm going. So the last game against the Yankees is actually a normal start. It's a 1:40 game here in New York, but it'll be 7:40 out in Europe. I actually have plans that night, so that's going to be a DVR affair. So it will still end up being like a 2-3 a.m. Rico Brogna. And then when they play in Baltimore, the 7 o'clock games, again, due to the time difference, that's a 1 a.m. first pitch. When they're in Kansas City, 8 o'clock games, that's a 2 a.m. first pitch. But I like it. The Mets are my, even when they're sucking, the Mets are like my therapist. They're my getaway. So we plan on doing Rico Brogna's even while I'm traveling the globe. To my fellow Met fans, I would tell you to keep your chin up, but that'd be a lie. We suck, and we're in Panic City. Thank you very much for listening, downloading. Oh, wait, before I go, there's a few other things I do need to take care of. Number one, if you go to Citi Field this week, we may shock you and have a reason to celebrate. And if you celebrate, you want to celebrate your highlights with Mio Sparkling Sake, a true crowd pleaser, light, bubbly, and easy to enjoy. Whether you're at Citi Field or your favorite spot, ask for Mio Sparkling Sake by name. It's a new tradition served chilled, imported from Japan. The official sake of Rico Brogna. Enjoy responsibly. I may bring that with me to Europe. I may be having some sake while we're doing 3 a.m. Rico Brogna's after Mets Royals.
Yeah, have some crepes and some Mio sake. I was wondering, do you think they actually sell the sake in Europe? You think they have it there? You got to look for a Chuhai. Go look for a Chuhai too, man.
I think so. They're very cultured over there. I think they're going to have it everywhere. And by the way, I'm hitting a bunch of countries. I'm going to France. I'm going to Spain. I'm going to Italy. So there will be Rico Brogna's from 3 different countries in Europe, assuming the technology works. And why wouldn't it work? All it takes is Wi-Fi, right, Pete?
All right. So one thing you need to know, okay, and I'm being very serious about this. When I went to Germany with the Giants, the one thing that we had, they gave us the outlets, the plugs to adapt all of your electronic devices.
Oh, crap.
If you don't have that, you're kind of out of luck, dude. You need to have an outlet to plug into.
Oh, okay. So maybe. All right. I have to investigate that. Luckily, I still have some time before we head out.
You do. It shouldn't be that bad. They sell them all over the place, but you need to have it. Like I got 2 of them before I got into the flight to go to Europe with the Giants. So
I'll be working on that. Here's the bottom line for the Rico audience. There will be Rico Brogna's, whether it's me from Europe or Hoff doing it. We have you covered throughout that final few series before the All-Star break. And then coming up during the All-Star break, I can't wait. We're going to have a very special Rico where we count down the greatest moments in David Wright's career. That'll be posted for you to enjoy coming up during the All-Star break. Anyhow, my fellow Met fans, yeah, let's just keep it. Let's just keep it going on, even though we suck. Thank you very much for listening, downloading, and subscribing to another edition, a depressing edition of Rico Brogna.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Rico Brogna podcast. It's amazing, isn't it? Make sure you download it now to keep it on you at all times.